And let me tell you, just so you know who you're dealing with, when we say agency, people hear me saying, you know, an objective, fair U.S. government that somehow is there representing you. Don't be so sure of that, because if you look at a study that E&E Legal did into Obama's EPA, they found that over that 8 years, there was a revolving door between Obama's EPA leadership and the top most extreme environmental groups. That EPA was led by people who just came out of the group that's now suing the EPA. You see what I'm saying? It's the same people on either side of the table. And so the two people who did the report I just mentioned about the funding of the Green Movement and the ties to the Russian company, that was Senator Vitter of Louisiana, who is not there anymore, and Congressman Darrell Issa doing the House side of the investigation. I had them both on the show. I said, you know what, let me get this straight. The report says that you have, you know, potentially Russian money coming in as the sixth largest funder of the Green Movement. The Green Movement are the people heading up the EPA almost uniformly in the appointments. There wasn't a single business person in there. There wasn't a single union leader. Nobody who had to make payroll other than in a militant green group, an extreme green group. How do we know it's not Russia calling the shots up at the EPA against the Permian Basin? How can we know that? And they said, well, we can't know that. We cannot know that money coming from Russia, and don't think of them as, don't be emotional about this. Don't think of them as the evil empire. Think of them as a competitor. They're right. A business competitor to American frackers, and they want to shut them down. You know what they're doing, you would do it too. It's totally rational.
Lever. The leverage is outrageous, that they can take relatively small amount of money, apply it taking advantage of our political system, and in the end, manipulating and controlling whether or not we're a producer that competes against them.
Exactly, because if you take the U.S. fracking offline, especially the Permian Basin, their revenues boom. If you could wave a wand and stop U.S. production and take us back to the pre-fracking days, because the EPA wanted to regulate fracking, you know, any way they could find a way. What would the price of oil be right now? And I don't.
You suggested $200 a barrel without our fracking industry. What would Vladimir Putin, what would the Saudis do at $200 a barrel? What would that do to Putin's military expenditure? It changes the entire geopolitics of the world. It puts us in a very weak position, puts them in a very strong position, and they're able to pull that lever with financial means. That's economic warfare.
They would be super wealthy. Their coffers would be overflowing. They could finance warfare anywhere they wanted. And the more war there is, the more oil you're knocking offline in these oil-producing regions, the more you spike the price. It's an incentive to create warfare. And that's why, look now, I mean, after the fracking revolution, which really hit its stride highest in 2014 and forward, you're seeing all these proxy wars being fought everywhere between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are two major producers. And you see Russia's hand all over the Middle East where it didn't used to be. We didn't permit that in the past, but now Obama let it go on, let him cross the red line. I'm looking around and I'm saying, are they testing right now? How many wars do we have to have going at one time to spike the price of oil? All of our lifetime before the fracking revolution, just with OPEC collusion, and it's an open cartel, it's not a secret, you only needed one. You know, if one country has a civil war, two oil countries have a war, that's all it takes. Boom, price up. It's not true anymore. Anything they take offline, the American fracker puts right back on. So it's destroyed the incentive to gin up warfare for bad guys and strong men who run, or dictators, of petrostates. But I think you're actually seeing the death throes of that. I think they're trying to see, is it possible, anything short of a war between Saudi and Iran, I mean, that would do it. That would spike the price. Can you do these little proxy wars in Yemen and in Iraq and in Syria?
They're just not paying anymore.
In Nigeria and Libya. Yeah, and so you just, it's like, and it's just not happening. That's not what's causing the rise right now. So
what you're suggesting, though, is all of the geopolitics has a monetary economic component, and in fact, it kind of is all about the money.